Have you ever stopped to think that the most terrifying villain in Shrek is not the one who screams, who fights, or who commands armies? That the most disturbing villain in the entire franchise is precisely the one who smiles politely, speaks calmly, and uses the law to destroy lives: Lord Farquaad. The name already says a lot: tiny on the outside, gigantic in cruelty on the inside. Today we are going to dive deep into this character. We are going to talk about the dark theory that exists behind him, about the tragic past that most people never truly paid attention to, about his family's origin, which is far more disturbing than it appears, and about what all of this says about our own society. Brace yourself, because this is going to get heavy. First, let me set the scene for you. Lord Farquaad is the main antagonist of the first Shrek film, released in 2001. He rules the lordship of Duloc, wants to become king, and in order to do that, he needs to marry a princess. Any princess, as long as she is, in his own words, perfect. And that is where Fiona's story comes in. But let us go beyond the plot. Let us look at Farquaad in a different way, with attention, with care. Because when you start connecting the pieces, the picture that emerges is far sadder than it is scary. Let us start at the very beginning, with Farquaad's family. And listen, what I'm about to tell you is something most people do not know, because this information is not in the movie. It lives in the Broadway musical, Shrek the Musical, which opened in 2008 and which features a song called The Ballad of Farquaad, a song that reveals his past in a way that will completely change how you see this character. So here we go. Farquaad's father was a dwarf, and not just any dwarf. Farquaad's father was Grumpy. That is right, Grumpy from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the most bad-tempered, the most irritable, the one who was always in a foul mood. And Farquaad's mother, his mother was a princess. Specifically, she was the princess from the fairy tale, The Princess and the Pea, by Hans Christian Andersen. A real princess of royal blood who gave up her crown for love. She fell in love with Grumpy and married him, even knowing it would cost her everything. She was disowned by her royal family for marrying a dwarf. It is a beautiful love story at the start. Two beings from completely different worlds, brought together by something genuine. But the story does not end well. The princess struggled to sleep on her husband's old, simple mattress. Grumpy, trying to do something kind for his wife, stacked 25 mattresses on top of each other so she could sleep more comfortably. An entire tower of mattresses. One night, she rolled over in her sleep and fell from 25 mattresses high, and she did not survive. Farquaad never knew his mother. That means he lost her when he was still very young, possibly as a baby, and he grew up with only his father. Think for a moment about the weight of that. Growing up without a mother is already hard, but growing up without a mother, as the son of a grumpy dwarf who spent his days deep underground mining diamonds and barely had the time or patience to raise a child, that creates a very specific kind of wound. And what does the musical reveal about Farquaad's relationship with his father? In the song, Farquaad sings about his father in a way that mixes hurt with resentment. He talks about how his father barely said a word, how he left every single day muttering, hi-ho, and disappeared underground. Distant, difficult, grumpy. The name makes a lot more sense now, doesn't it? But here comes the cruelest detail of all. During the musical, toward the end, Grumpy shows up at his son's wedding, and it is revealed that Farquaad's version of his own past was a lie. Farquaad claimed his father had abandoned him in the forest when he was just a child, that he had been left to fend for himself, that he had grown up completely alone. But that is not what happened. What actually happened is that Farquaad lived with his father until he was 28 years old, and then Grumpy kicked him out of the house because he had been living in the basement without paying rent. 28 years old, in the basement, contributing nothing. Grumpy simply put his foot down and told his son it was time to figure out his own life. That is completely different from being abandoned as a child in a forest. But Farquaad transformed that story into the narrative of a rejected son, left to die, who survived alone, and built everything from nothing. Why did he do that? Because the truth was too humiliating. The truth was that he was a grown adult who could not support himself, who had been living off his father, who got kicked out of home at 28 years old, like someone who simply was not working as a person. And turning that into a story of tragic abandonment was the only way Farquaad could look at himself without falling apart completely. Now, here is the part that ties everything together. The real dark theory. Farquaad is the son of a dwarf and a princess who gave up royalty. That means he is what the musical calls a halfling, half dwarf, half human. He does not fully belong to either world, too small to be treated as a regular human, but too human to be accepted among the dwarfs. And in the world of Shrek, that kind of thing matters enormously. The kingdom of Far, Far Away is a place where appearances determine a person's worth, where beauty standards decide who deserves respect and who does not, where creatures that do not fit the mold are expelled, marginalized, thrown to the side. Farquaad was a victim of that system from the moment he was born. And here is the core of the dark theory. Instead of fighting against that system, Farquaad became its greatest defender. He began expelling magical creatures from Duloc. He created absurd laws. He established rigid standards of perfection. He punished everything that was different. Why? Because if the system that hurt him is the legitimate system, then defending that system was the only way he could see to prove he also belonged to it, to prove he deserved a place inside that cruel hierarchy. It is a circular, self-destructive logic, and it is a very, very human one. Have you ever seen this in the real world? Someone who was bullied growing up and became exactly the kind of person who attacked them. Someone who was excluded and when they gained a little power, used that power to exclude others? I'm not saying it is right. I am not saying it justifies anything. I am saying it is real. It is painful. And it is exactly what Farquaad represents. He is the tragedy of someone who could not break the cycle, who was shaped by the system, destroyed by the system, and then dedicated his entire life to keeping that same system running. But there is another layer here, and this layer involves the very creator of Farquaad himself. There is a behind-the-scenes story about the creation of this character that is absolutely fascinating and says a lot about who Farquaad truly is. The producer of Shrek was Jeffrey Katzenberg, and Katzenberg had a real enemy in the corporate world, Michael Eisner, the then CEO of Disney. Here is the story. Katzenberg worked at Disney for many years as the president of the film division, but in 1994, Eisner forced him out of the company. It was a humiliating dismissal, filled with personal conflict between the two men. And Eisner was famously reported to have said about Katzenberg, "I think I hate that little midget." Katzenberg, who is a man of short stature, did not forget those words. So when he went on to found DreamWorks and produce Shrek, he created Lord Farquaad, a villain who rules a fake kingdom of artificial perfection, who is controlling, cold, and narcissistic, who treats people as pieces on a board, and who carries an ego far larger than his physical frame. Farquaad was Katzenberg's artistic revenge against Eisner. And the irony? Shrek won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature in 2002, beating Monsters, Inc. from Disney. DreamWorks even released the Shrek DVD on the same day Disney released the Monsters, Inc. DVD, a direct and deliberate jab. Katzenberg turned his humiliation into a cinematic Empire Strikes Back, and in the middle of all that backstory, one of the most complex and disturbing villains in animation history was born. Hey, before we keep going, if this content is making you see Shrek in a completely different light, do me a favor right now. Hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and turn on the notification bell. And consider becoming a member because members get exclusive content and early access. Every bit of support helps this project grow. Thank you so much. Now let us get back into it. Now let us talk about Duloc, because Duloc says a lot about the mind of Farquaad. Duloc is a deeply unsettling place. Too perfect, too clean, too organized. The streets are symmetrical, the flowers look artificial. Even the little dancing puppets at the entrance sing a hymn of praise to the Lord, in a tone that parodies classic Disney animations. Nothing in Duloc is organic. Everything is controlled. That is not an accident. Duloc is the externalization of Farquaad's mind. It is what happens when a person who lost control of their own life gains enough power to control the environment around them. When someone grows up in an unpredictable home, with a distant father, without a mother, never knowing what was coming next, they often develop an intense need for control as an adult. It is not malice, it is survival. It is the mind's way of making sure it will never be caught off guard again, never abandoned without warning, never hurt without the ability to protect itself. Farquaad built in Duloc the environment he never had as a child, predictable, controlled, where nothing goes off script. The problem is that a place like that is not a home. It is a prison dressed up as a kingdom, and Farquaad built that prison and called it home. Now let us talk about the scene that defines Farquaad better than any other. When the magic mirror is brought before him, Farquaad asks whether Duloc is the most perfect kingdom of all, and the mirror delivers bad news. Duloc is not officially a kingdom, because Farquaad is not a king. He's Mucharkite, he is merely a lord. To become a king, he needs to marry a princess. And so the mirror presents three candidates in a parody of American dating game shows: Cinderella, Snow White, and Fiona. Farquaad chooses Fiona, not out of love, not out of genuine attraction, but because she fills the requirement, because she is the missing piece in his puzzle of power. This scene has a depth that most people never notice. The magic mirror classifies the princesses like items in a catalog, evaluates them, decides who is good enough. And Farquaad, by using the mirror that way, is reproducing exactly the same mechanism of classification and exclusion that was used against him his entire life. Only now he is on the side of the one who classifies, on the side of the one who holds the power. It is bitter, it is tragic, and it is brilliant. Now I need to talk about why Farquaad simply cannot become king on his own merit. The film makes it clear that Duloc is not a kingdom. It is a lordship, and to become a king, Farquaad would need royal blood, which he does not have. Son of a dwarf miner and a princess who was disowned, he has royal blood through his mother, but a mother the system no longer recognizes as a legitimate princess. Which means Farquaad inherited the worst of both worlds. From his father, short stature and a life of manual labor. From his mother, royal blood worth nothing because she was stripped of her title. He is caught in the middle, belonging nowhere at the same time. And the only way to be recognized by the system is to marry someone that system still considers legitimate. A princess who was never disowned. A princess who still holds her title. A princess who will make him a real king in the eyes of everyone. It is devastating to realize that Farquaad dedicated his entire life to a system. And that same system keeps telling him he is still not enough. That something is always missing. That the place he wants will never be completely his without one more step, one more title, one more piece. Let us talk about Farquaad's relationship with Fiona, because that relationship has a dimension I find genuinely fascinating. Farquaad does not love Fiona. That is clear from the very beginning. He does not even meet her in person before deciding she is the ideal candidate. He selects her like someone choosing an item from a catalog. But there is a layer here worth exploring. Fiona is a cursed princess. She turns into an ogre at nightfall. She is someone who also does not fit the standards of her world. Someone who also hides who she truly is because she knows society will not accept her real self. Farquaad, without knowing it, was about to marry someone who was exactly like him at the core, both hiding their truth, both desperately trying to appear as what society expects of them. The difference is that Fiona found Shrek, and Shrek accepted her completely, exactly as she was, while Farquaad never had that. Never had a single moment of genuine acceptance in his life. What would have happened if Farquaad, at some point in his life, had found someone who accepted him? Who saw him as a person and not an anomaly? Who did not laugh at his height? Who did not treat him as less? Would he still be the villain? That is the question the dark theory leaves hanging in the air, and it does not have an easy answer. And there is a specific theory that Shrek fans have developed over the years, and I think it is one of the most powerful ones out there. It says this: Farquaad is the broken mirror of Shrek. Think about it. Shrek was also rejected, also excluded for being different, also pushed to the margins of society for not fitting the mold. The difference is that Shrek chose isolation, built a swamp, decided not to participate in the system. Farquaad took the opposite path, decided to conquer the system, to dominate the system, to prove he deserved a place inside it, and both of them were trapped, just in different ways. What saved Shrek was genuine connection, with Fiona, with Donkey, with people who truly accepted him. Farquaad reached power completely alone, with no true friends, with no one who loved him for who he actually was, and power, without love, corrupts in a very specific way. It makes you believe that controlling everything is the same as belonging somewhere. It is not. Now, let us talk about a visual detail that almost nobody notices. Farquaad's throne in Dulac is enormous, completely disproportionate to his size. The steps are incredibly tall. The chair is gigantic. That is not a design error. It is intentional. It is a visual metaphor for the fact that Farquaad is always trying to occupy a space that was built for people bigger than him. That he is always climbing to reach what others reach without effort. That he is always compensating for what he feels is missing. It is one of the most subtle and most brilliant things in the entire animation, and it goes completely unnoticed most of the time. And now, the final scene. At the climax of the first film, after all the chaos at the ceremony, after Fiona reveals her true ogre form, Farquaad is horrified. He rejects her immediately, orders her imprisoned, orders Shrek killed, and then the dragon appears and swallows Farquaad. The film plays it for laughs. We laugh. End of the villain. But there is something deeply painful in that scene if you stop to think about it. Farquaad dies completely alone, with no one beside him who truly cares. The guards are employees, not friends. The bride he chose is clearly in love with someone else. The other characters are caught up in their own moments of joy, and Farquaad disappears. No farewell, no one who misses him, no one who cries. It is the saddest possible ending for a character who spent his entire life trying to be seen. A whole lifetime of chasing recognition. A whole lifetime trying to prove he belonged, and he ends up invisible to everyone around him in the moment of his death. And that brings us to the question this entire theory leaves us with. How many Farquaads exist around us? People who lost someone important far too early, who grew up without the affection they needed, who developed difficult, controlling, even cruel behaviors, as a response to a pain that was never treated, who reached power or status precisely because they had nothing else, and who, in the end, are completely alone. I am not saying the answer is to ignore the harm those people cause. I am not saying origin justifies behavior. I am saying it might be worth looking beyond the obvious villain, asking where that cruelty came from. Understanding that behaviors do not appear out of nowhere, that people are not naturally cruel, and that perhaps, if someone had reached Farquaad earlier in life, with genuine acceptance, without judgment, the story of Dulac could have been very different. Let me make one final connection that closes this whole line of thought in a beautiful way. At the start of Shrek, there is the iconic scene where the ogre is in the bathroom, using the pages of a fairy tale book as toilet paper. It is a joke. It is hilarious. But there is a deeper reading there. Shrek rejects fairy tales because he knows fairy tales were not made for him. The happy ending is not for ogres. Farquaad did the opposite. Farquaad decided to force fairy tales to accept him. He expelled the creatures that did not fit. He tried to reshape the fairy tale world according to the very standards that excluded him, only placing himself on the inside. Shrek and Farquaad had opposite responses to the same rejection, and the film ends with Shrek earning the happy ending he never expected, with genuine love, with real acceptance, while Farquaad dies without ever coming close to the place he always wanted. It is almost a philosophical conclusion about authenticity versus performance, about what happens when you spend your entire life fighting to be accepted by a system that will never truly want you, versus when you simply stop, accept yourself, and let real connections find you. And Lord Farquaad will keep being the funny little villain for a lot of people, and that is perfectly fine. The film is great that way too. But now that you have seen what lies beneath, it will be hard to watch it again without thinking about this story.
without seeing that child who grew up without a mother, that young man raised by a distant, grumpy father, that man who built an entire kingdom trying to prove he deserved to exist, and who, in the end, did not make it. What if this video made you see a character you thought you already knew in a completely new way? Then it did its job. Subscribe and leave a like. Thank you so much. See you in the next one.